The man was shocked to discover that his home TV could actually connect to ancient times. Even more bizarre, he could even talk to people from the past through the TV. But on the other side, when the general saw the man, he thought the man was a spy sent by the enemy. After searching online, he realized that the general was from over 1,000 years ago. The shock made him lose his grip on his phone, and he accidentally threw it into the TV. The next second, the phone passed through a time vortex and ended up in the general's hands. Little did he know, the general thought it was a weapon and instinctively tossed his own sword through the screen. After picking up the phone, the general was deeply puzzled. Soon, he accidentally unlocked it by tapping on it. When he saw the man on the screen, the general was thrilled. But the next second, the man asked the general to return his phone because it contained photos of him and his mother. After hearing this, the general suddenly realized that the man on the other side was his own son. It turned out that 20 years ago, the general was severely wounded. To escape pursuit, he accidentally entered the modern world. A kind woman rescued him. While tending to his wounds, the two gradually fell in love. The woman even became pregnant with the general's child. However, the general was always worried about his soldiers. So he left behind half of a jade pendant and promised that once the war was over, he would return to the modern world to reunite with the woman and their child. Unfortunately, though the general won the war, he could never find a way back to the modern world. He searched for the woman tirelessly for 20 years until he saw the photo on the phone and finally realized that the man was his son. But just as he was about to reveal his identity, the time tunnel closed. The general immediately ordered his men to summon every strategist in the land. They must uncover the secret, for he had to see his son again. Meanwhile, the man was equally confused. But no matter how he fiddled with it, the TV wouldn't respond anymore. Just then, Linda suddenly called him, inviting him to rehearse for a play. The man had always secretly liked Linda, so he immediately agreed. However, Linda said the drama club still needed a prop sword and hoped he could help. The man looked at the sword the general had thrown over and decided to use it as a prop. The next day, the man brought the sword to school. Just as he and Linda were rehearsing together, Jack, who had always had a crush on Linda, walked in. Jack's followers immediately told the man to get lost, saying only Jack was worthy of rehearsing with Linda. Linda said they had already agreed that the man would play the role. Jack shouldn't try to take it away. Jack looked down on the man, mocking him for being an orphan and saying he wasn't worthy of playing the lead. In the face of Jack's ridicule, the sword in the man's hand suddenly glowed, as if urging him to teach them a lesson. The man thought he was hearing things, but the next second he began to lose control of himself. He pointed the sword at Jack. Jack and his friends were terrified, but fortunately, the teacher arrived just in time, preventing a tragedy. That afternoon, the teacher took the students to visit a museum. She told them about the general's heroic deeds in his lifetime, saying he was a national hero. Unexpectedly, the sword reacted again, but the man still thought it was just his imagination. He didn't think much of it. Soon after, the teacher led the students to see the general's swords. She explained to everyone that these were all swords once used by the general. However, the most famous one was missing. Unexpectedly, the sword in the man's hand seemed to respond to a call. While no one was paying attention, it revealed its true form and flew into the display among the other swords. However, no one else saw what had happened. The teacher thought the man was just playing a prank and told him to remove the prop sword immediately so he wouldn't damage the precious artifacts. The man tried to explain, but no one listened to him. He had no choice but to take the sword down. A short while later, the man saw the general's portrait. As he stared at that familiar face, he finally realized that this was the man he had seen that day. The next second, he noticed a half-jade pendant hanging on the portrait. Remembering his mother's dying words, he began to believe that his father might really be this general. Unexpectedly, Jack overheard him. He mocked the man, saying he must be crazy. They were more than 1,000 years apart, so how could they possibly be father and son? The man was about to argue back, but the teacher stopped him. She reminded everyone not to damage the artifacts, then allowed them to walk around freely. However, while no one was watching, Jack secretly set the general's portrait on fire and slipped the lighter into the man's pocket. Soon, the burning portrait drew the curator and others over. When they saw the destroyed portrait, the curator was furious. At that moment, Jack deliberately framed the man, claiming he was the one who set the fire. The security guard even found the lighter in his pocket. He immediately decided to send the man to the police. Linda tried to defend him, but the curator refused to listen. He angrily declared that this was the only existing portrait of the general, a national treasure. Now that the man had destroyed it, he must pay the price. Just then, the sword once again began to glow, but this time, unlike before, it reacted because it sensed its master's presence drawing near. It turned out that on the other side, the general had already discovered a way to travel through time. He had now set up an altar, ready to use the jade pendant at any moment to cross into the modern world. After making all the preparations Congratulations, the general raised the pendant high. The next second, the portrait suddenly emitted a strange, dazzling light.